All right, now so I want to kind of continue where we left off this morning when we're looking at chapter 3, syllabification pronunciation. I want to kind of go back over some stuff. So give me a second. I meant to have pulled up already the PowerPoint, and there it is. Let me see if I can do a share here. If I go to the right place, share this and share that, and hopefully now we're all looking at the PowerPoint. So I want to back up here and kind of run through a couple of things. Okay, so as we get organized, sorry, I should have been more organized before we started. All right, as we get started here, I wanted to remind ourselves there are really two rules for syllabification. Syllabification is how we divide words into syllables, smaller parts. It helps us to understand and to pronounce, and so we're all speaking the same language effectively, right? And basically, the first rule is every syllable begins with one consonant and has only one vowel. So here's a syllable. It has, we'll start with here, one consonant and one vowel. One consonant and one vowel. And we'll get to the next consonant. There's no vowel to it. So every syllable must begin with one consonant and one vowel. So this begins with a consonant and a vowel, and now we have another consonant and a vowel. So this cannot be a continuation of the same syllable. It must be a new syllable. So it begins with a consonant and a vowel, and it ends with a consonant. And that's where we make our dividing line for pronunciation. And when we pronounce these are going to be always the consonant first and then the vowel. So consonant, the da for dalet, the comates, the ah for like father. So da, and this is of course the doggish lane, so it's that hard da sound. So it's da, and then our next syllable is our bait. Now this does not have the doggish in it. It's not there, so it's going to more be a V sound. So this is going to be a va with the comates again, that ah sound. So va, but we're going to close it, continue it with the closing resh. So it's var. So we would have da, var, and the second rule. There are two types of syllable: open, that's what the red is, and close, that's what the blue is. Let me clean this up a little bit because it gets too messy. Okay, good news, I'm going fast, but you can slow it down. All right, so a closed syllable is one that ends in a consonant. So we have here ending in a consonant. Well, I don't want to draw it that way. It looks like another syllable. Let's don't do that. Okay, so here it ends in a consonant, and it begins with a consonant, has one vowel, and it ends in a consonant. That is a closed syllable. This is an open syllable. An open syllable has a consonant with a vowel, and the next letter is another consonant with a vowel, and it cannot be part of the same syllable. It continues, it starts a new syllable, because that's rule one. Begin with a consonant and has one vowel. And so open syllables end in a vowel, closed syllables end in a consonant. It's really that basic. Open syllables end in a vowel, closed syllables end in a consonant. Ends in a vowel, ends in a consonant. Open, closed. Okay? Now, I know as you kind of read through, you're trying to think all that, and after a while, it becomes a little more natural. But let's bring out a couple more points while we're on this page. Let me clear up. All right, so this is the unaccented. Our accent, as we mentioned this morning, is going to be typically, unlike English, we typically try to put the emphasis on the first syllable of a word, but in Hebrew, the emphasis generally goes on the last syllable of the word. And whatever syllable is being accented, that's called the tonic syllable. And so this is where the accent is. If there were an accent mark over the first syllable, this would be where the accent goes. But we don't have that, so we don't have to worry about it here. All right, so we talked about the accent here. I want to move on. The accent mark I just mentioned. Okay, it doesn't let me do this here. Let me see if I can do this a different way. Clear all those marks on it. discard everything, and then come back to it. Okay. Start with slideshow. Okay. So the accent mark, this would be our tonic syllable. I know we talked this morning, they give you these classifications, tonic, pretonic, and propitonic. Okay, they're good to know, but I don't believe they're on the test. I don't believe I have them on the test. If I do, it's open book, so it's not a problem. But the accent's where the tonic syllable is. That's where we put our emphasis. Again, this is a consonant. This is a mem with a vowel. Begins with a consonant, has a vowel. The vowel happens to be the sagol. And so this is a mem sound, and this is the eh. So meh, like a meh, not me, meh. And we have another consonant with a vowel, so this cannot be a continuation. This must be starting a new syllable. Le, the lamet with the sagol le, and here we have the dalet right here. And so this is led. That is a silent shavah. We touched on shavahs, or we're going to add a little more about shavahs anyway, but it's silent. If the shavah comes at the end of a word, it's silent, so you don't really pronounce anything. You still pronounce the consonant. You just don't have to pronounce the shavah. So this would be meled, but because the accent's here on the first, it's meled, not meled, but meled. And so it's meled. All right, I'm sure that is perfectly understandable, and everybody's like, oh yeah, I got it. I do want to encourage you, especially if you don't kind of grasp my explanation and understanding. That's okay. You're not hurting my feelings, I promise you. There are other, we put in the LMS under the flip class, either prior to the class, listen to those so that when we come in class and go over this, it's not brand new. Or if it is brand new because you didn't take my advice, go back and listen to those. And now you'll hear another perspective or another way that someone else might present it. And it might click with you differently or better than say, with me or with the first time. And so we talked about the various classifications. The accent syllable is generally the last, not always. If there was a little accent mark, that's where the accent would be. That is called the tonic. That's why it's in red. Pretonic in blue. I'm a nice guy. I color code everything for you. Pretonic would be the blue. It's pre. Pre means before the tonic. Well, it's rocket science there. And pro-pre-tonic, before the pre-tonic, in the black, is the rest of the word. And so here in this particular long word, we have the pretonic where the emphasis or the accent is. We have the pretonic and then the pro-pretonic here. That's all that's trying to tell you. It is useful to know, but I think sometimes it might be clutter at this stage, but it's in the book, so I don't want to ignore it. I just don't want you to okay, freak out over it. I don't really care how much you know the names of the syllables. I don't know that really matters. We did talk about the dogish, this little dot in the Bagat Kafat letters, right? The Bagat Kafat letters. They have a dogish lane. David told us several times that the dogish lane is the one that basically when it's present, it hardens the sound. It's, in this case, puh, not fuh. So it's a hardened sound. But you can have, that dot can be, if it's in a Bagat Kafat letter, a dogish forte. The dogish forte can be in any consonant except what? Except the gutturals, right? Any consonant except the gutturals. So it means it can be in Bagat Kafat letters. So the question is how do you know if that's a dogish lane or a dogish forte? It's really quite simple. Basically, we're going to say that if it's a vowel that precedes it, any vowel that precedes it, it is a dogish forte. A dogish forte doubles the sound, doubles the consonant. If it is, if there's no vowel that precedes it, then it is a dogish lane. That is, it doubles not doubles, but it hardens the sound, and that's the real difference between the two. And I just covered that. I think I covered that. Let me double check. Let's see. Okay, this is talking about silent Shavah. So here we have, let's see, we have this Dagesh. How do we know? And it's in the Kaf. Kaf is one of the Bagat Kafat letters. There it is, the K, the Kaf. And how do you know if it's a Lene or Forte? Well, you know, you can ask someone, or you could just know the rule. If it's preceded by a vowel, then it's a forte. If it's not preceded by a vowel, preceded by a consonant or open, then it is a Dagesh Lene. So it would harden the sound, not double the sound. Well, this is a consonant with a silent Shavah. We already looked at this. This is where knowing if it's silent or open, understanding that's a closed, right? There's a consonant, the mem, with a vowel. First, it leads the syllable. This consonant has no vowel. We don't count a Shavah as a vowel. That is not a vowel, and so effectively, this is a closed syllable, and the lamed with the Shavah, no sound to the Shavah, closes the syllable. So that's a mal. Well, if this is a consonant with no vowel, what does the rule say about that little Dagesh? Well, there's no vowel, it's preceded by a consonant. That is a Dagesh Lene, not a Dagesh Forte. In other words, it would be mal ka with that hard C sound and not the more softer sound. All right. So, and Shavah, let's talk about Shavah. That's our Shavah. It can be with any consonant, including the gutturals. It can be either silent or vocal. That's it, nothing else. It's not part of the vowel classes. It's not part of the vowel types. It doesn't count like a vowel. It does effectively help you understand with regard to syllabification, division of syllables. If it is a closed or silent Shavah, then it's never pronounced. There's no pronunciation to that. That would just be ba, the bait. That's it. And if it's a vocal, yeah, I'd say be ba, but there's really going to be a consonant before it probably, and there's going to be a consonant before with a vowel. Let's say that, and that would be bab or bab, and this would not be pronounced. That's what I'm trying to get to. If it is a vocal Shavah, let's say that's the first letter in the word, first consonant in the word with the Shavah, then it will be vocal, and you make a very hurried sound, ba, ba, or ba. I've heard some people do ba, but I was taught ba. So a silent Shavah, basically when it immediately preceded by a short vowel, right? Short vowel, it is silent, and that's going to give us a closed syllable. And it's silent Shavah because it's immediately preceded by the patak right there. And if it's a silent Shavah, also, if there are two Shavahs side by side, the first is silent, and the second is vocal. It's really that simple. So in this case, just get this out of the way. This is mish, what? Mish. This is one. I don't want it to be ugly. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Let's fix that. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Don't do that. How am I doing this? Okay, back to there. All right. So if right here, there's our consonant with a vowel, and this is closed. It's a silent, so this is closed, and so this is going to be pronounced in one syllable. So this is mish, or shin with a silent Shavah, mish. And here we have, that must be vocal Shavah, a vocal Shavah with a Dagesh. It's preceded by what? It's preceded by a consonant, not a vowel. So that means it is a Dagesh Lene, hard p sound, not the f, but the p sound, and hence it is going to be a vocal Shavah. So that is because it's vocal. Vocal meaning It has a consonant, and because that's vocal, we would treat it as if it has a vowel. And then there's a consonant with a vowel. Actually, it's a vowel letter, so that's all one there. So clean this up a little bit, and we'll pronounce it. So we can read it. This is mishpate. Mishpate. Yeah, I think I got that right. Anyway, not like I'm an expert, okay? If the Shava is at the end of a word, we've already mentioned this once, it is silent. So the Shava at the end of the word is silent. And so you have ka, tav, katav. No, two Shavas. There we go. Messed that up then. There's two Shavas. So here's a ka, tav, and this is going to be silent, and this is going to be vocal. Well, it can't be vocal because it's silent. You wrote. I'm going to have to look at the rule in that one. The end of the word is silent. Normally, when you got two side by side, this would be silent and that would be vocal. So I'll have to look that one up and try to figure out why that is, and we'll bring that up next time we get together. So, okay, not a perfect answer, but it's where we're at. All right, so now those are silent Shavas, right? Now, vocal Shava is, well, if it's at the beginning of the word, it's always vocal. Ba, or whatever the noun or the consonant is with the Shava, da, ba, yeah. And if there are two side by sides, we mentioned before, the first one is going to be silent. The second one is vocal. If the Shava is after the Shava after a long vowel is normally vocal. After a long vowel, they normally like to have the Shava being vocal. So because a long vowel will close off, and then we'll get that and that. So we get kotavim, kotavim. All right. Part two of a vocal Shava. The appearance of a Shava under a consonant doggish forte can be tricky, right? So this is the doggish forte. It's a short vowel, right? So what happens? You have basically this. You get the doggish forte, you get the doubling of that mem, and so it doubles the consonant and the Shava. Well, what does that make? It makes the first one silent, 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 and then vocal on that one. So the second one is vocal. So this is ham, ma, lakim, hamalakim. I think that's queen, if I remember right, something like that. Okay. All right. Now, we covered a little bit of this morning, but I want to pick it up real quick. Kame tatuf. Actually, we didn't cover. This is where we left off, if I remember. Yeah, but we left off really on page 20. We just got to go through page 20 and 21 of the book, and we finished this chapter. This is where we left off. So we talked before about the kamates and the kamates hatuf, right? The kamates and the kamates hatuf. We'll go ahead and put our bait here. We'll go and make it with a doggish line, and a kamates hatuf. Same thing. They look exactly the same. How do you know the difference? Well, the kamates hatuf has what we need to know the difference because that has a short O sound, whereas the kamates has that long A sound. And so kamates hatuf, though, occurs in a closed, unaccented syllable. Well, this is where it helps to know between a closed and open syllable. A closed syllable is, remember, a syllable is going to start with a consonant, have a vowel, one vowel, and if the next letter to it has a vowel, then that would be open, and we finish there. But it does not. It actually has the Shava, and that would be a silent Shava, so it closes right there. And so you get this, because this is a closed syllable, unaccented, because the accent's here. Remember, accent's normally at the end, unless you see the little marker. So it's unaccented. So this is our closed syllable, unaccented, and that is not a hak, it's a hokma, not a hakma, hok, because this is as the O. short O sound to it. Hopefully that makes a little sense. The comates prefer, and this is where actually I'm going to kind of have you look at page 23 in a moment. I'm going to go through some of this stuff in page 23 with mixed feelings, mixed emotions, mixed thoughts about doing this. But I want to introduce it, and then you can ignore it if it just is too much. Okay. I want to tell you truthfully, this, although I can understand the pronunciation part, I could see, okay, consonant, I'm talking about when I was first learning it, consonant, a syllable begins with a consonant and has one vowel. If the next consonant has no vowel, that becomes part of the syllable, it's closed. If the next consonant has a vowel, then the first consonant with its vowel is an open syllable, and I would pronounce it in of itself, and then the next and so forth. So, all right, I'm just making confusion here. So the comates prefers an open syllable, right? The comates prefers an open syllable. Well, look here. This is an open syllable. It does not end in a consonant. It ends in a vowel. If it ends in a consonant, that would be a closed syllable. But the comates, not the comates hatu, the comates, which is our long A, right? Our long A prefers an open pretonic syllable. Well, where's the tonic? The tonic is here because typically we put the accent on the end of the word. So it prefers, it doesn't mean that's where it always will be, but this long A, this comates, prefers to be right there in the very first syllable if it's a open syllable so an open pretonic syllable right there, right? Or a closed accented syllable, right? What's this? That is a closed accented syllable. It is the last syllable of the word. That's where we put our emphasis, our accent right here. This is a close. We start with a consonant, we have one vowel, and we have another consonant with no vowel. That's closed. So it doesn't continue we can't continue the pronunciation past that. And so this is a closed syllable that's accented. This is an open syllable unaccented. And notice this, the comates never prefers never closed and unaccented. So it would never be a closed, let's just assume something here, okay? Just say boom, 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 and this is a made-up word, okay? That is a closed syllable. The comates does not prefer closed unaccented because there's our accent. So it doesn't prefer that. So you normally wouldn't have a comate. You'd have probably a product there. And that's what they're trying to bring out. Now, what's really neat, the further you go into the Hebrew, the more like, okay, that makes sense. Because as you see vowels change, pronunciation change. And in Hebrew, as the word gets longer, the vowels at the beginning of the word all change and become shorter, smaller, or reduced. We normally want to put those longer vowels where we're going to put our emphasis, our accent in some form. I want to introduce something else called a methic. Pretty simple, just a little bitty vertical line next to the comates. And if it's there, it's an identity marker, simplifies your life. You can go to bed and have pleasant, sweet dreams because that tells you that is a comates, not a comates hatuf. So it's that is a long A sound, not a short O sound. And that's all that is. So the methic is your friend. Learn to love it. Now, sadly, it's not always there, but often it is there. And once it's there, you don't even have to try to figure out, oh, is that open, closed? Is that accented, unaccented? You don't even have to figure it out. It just told you that. That is we have a consonant with one vowel. That is one syllable. Start another consonant with, this is a vowel letter, then it ends in a consonant, that's another syllable. So here is one syllable, here's the other. And so this would be, let's get all the writing out of our way. This is the batim, batim, ba-team. and da, var, ba, team, emphasis on the team. This is hokmah, actually the hokmah, well, I think that's wisdom. This is word, saying, statement, and batim. I don't remember what batim means. Okay, so that's on page page 20, the very top of page 20, 3.7. Let me see, they covered all number 1, number 2, number 3 there, and that's what that is. Hopefully it kind of makes sense. If not, well, as we go through it, you'll become more and more accustomed to it. But also, if you look at some of the videos on the flip class in the LMS, that will kind of help maybe give it a different perspective. And as well as when the next time you guys have you can meet on a Friday for homework, which unfortunately won't be next Friday, but the following, then you'll have Damien and Andres and ask them a million questions. They love that. All right, now we'll talk about something else called a furtive podic. Remember we said that basically the end of a word, let's say da, var, right? At the end of a word does not have a consonant. You could put a shava there. It's a silent shava, but no consonant, right? That's a no-no. Except, okay, I'm sure many of you are just like me when you grew up. You were rule breakers as kids, and you may still be one for all I know. Well, and for every rule, there's a rule breaker, and that's what the furtive podic is. It breaks the rule. It says that, hey, when a word ends in a het or an ayin, I may want to put a vowel with it. But the vowel is called a furtive podic because when we read right to left, right? We read the consonant and the vowel, consonant, vowel, and this time it's not consonant, vowel, it's vowel, consonant. So this would be boreach. Boreach. The vowel, the podic, comes before the consonant. That's the exception. But only when the het and the ayin is at the end of the word, and then it's a rule breaker, and you read, instead of reading consonant vowel, which is the norm, you read, in that particular case, at the end of the word with a het and an ayin, that's vowel constant. Okay, and it's almost always with a podic, by the way. That's why it's called a furtive podic. What did we say earlier? I think we said this morning, my teacher used to say always that them gutturals love them podics. Well, guttural, they love podics. They love A-class vowels. Well, podic is an A-class vowel. And so anyway, what else did we want to cover in here? Let's see. Trying to clean up. Oh yeah, the quiescent aleph. Okay, quiescent basically is silent, which I think is kind of odd because first off, the aleph makes no sound. It does not have a sound, right? But when you have a vowel, you don't make a sound there's no sound with the consonant, but if there was a vowel, you'd still pronounce the vowel. But a quiescent aleph doesn't have a vowel, and basically it's just ignored. I mean, it's there for spelling, but it's ignored even in the syllabification, the dividing of syllables and the pronunciation. And the pronunciation, because it's silent, there's no sound to it. In the syllabification, the dividing of the syllables, it's ignored, and ultimately it's like it's not there. Here's our consonant with one vowel. It begins the syllable and it ends in a consonant. We just ignore that. It's called a quiescent aleph. So sometimes the aleph will appear, actually quite often, and there's no vowel underneath it. It's like, wait a minute, what happened to the rule with one consonant, one vowel? Again, sort of a rule breaker. The aleph without a vowel is referred to as a quiescent. Basically, it's not pronounced. Somebody brought up diphthongs in our class today, and I want to mention that. Diphthongs, of course, in any language, we all have in our languages where multiple letters that may even be consonants or vowels, but in this case we're talking about vowels, where two vowels are pronounced as one sound, with one sound. So you don't differentiate the vowel sounds you basically pronounce them all as one. And so what happens is, and here's basically our format. Basically, you have whatever constant, let's say whatever the constant is. It's messy. Whatever the constant is, with the accent mark, we'll have a apodic and typically a vowel or consonant with a vowel and then a closing. We'll just put a letter here so that we're not confusing you. I am going to use these boxes later because they're very useful when we think about it. This is one syllable, and this is one, and for vowels, this is one sound. This is not ma'im. This is mayim, one sound in the vowels. And that's a diphthong. So when we do a syllabification, dividing the syllables, okay, one consonant, one vowel, there's our beginning of this syllable. And notice that it is an open syllable because the next letter is a consonant with a vowel, so it cannot continue the previous syllable. It must be a new syllable because a beginning of a syllable will have a consonant with one vowel. This syllable, though, has a diphthong, and that's where these two vowels are pronounced as one sound. So that's mime, shamayim. Here is bite, right here. So, or excuse me, this is the AI. Yeah, this is the I, shamayim, ein, bain, or bite. This is the A, ah. So I, we'll say like I, right? I, let's make it, okay. I, right? This would be that I, a pronunciation like an I. And this is ah, right? So when you have it with a segol and a kamates instead of the here the podic in the here, the podic in the heric, that's like I. When you have the podic and the segol, that's more like ah. So this would be instead da. There's start with a consonant. A syllable starts with a consonant. It has one vowel. Oh, actually, oh, that is wrong because the next letter is a silent java. So that's a dar. So this is dar, and here we got osh. Excuse me, not osh. Yash sound to it. I'm probably saying that wrong. Anyway, we'll practice it. We'll learn it together and figure it all out. Okay. Hebrew diphthongs. It's either I or ah. And if it's the kamates segol, it's ah, a vowel sound. So yash, this would be dar yash. I think that's right. Yeah, dar yash. And this would be the shamayim sound. All right. I'm sure I really just confused you. All right. All right. Here's where I really struggled trying to, because open syllables, closed syllables, I just threw me off. It took me a long time to really sort of put it together. And it's good if you know it, if you can understand this and put it together. And basically, I'm kind of picking up here now on page 23. And I want to talk a little bit about vowel preferences. Preferences, in other words, certain syllables, syllabification, prefer certain vowels. And that does make it a little bit easier when you're starting to look at how words change. It's the same word. What we're going to learn, we're going to go ahead and show you this much, okay? What we're going to learn is almost all Hebrew words, not all, but almost all Hebrew words have three roots, okay? Root 1, root 2, and root 3, 3 letters. And this becomes the root word. And so this might be with a dalet. This might be with the bait, and this might be with the resh. So this would be dalet, bait, resh. And ultimately, there are either an open or closed syllable we went through, but the proximity of the syllable to the accent, whether it be tonic, pretonic, propretonic, versus open, or accent or unaccent versus closed, uh, um, is dependent upon vowel preferences. And so that's kind of what I want to touch on now. Closed syllables that are accented. Here's our closed syllable. It is accented. It's the end. That's the normal. And so it prefers a long vowel. All right, we kind of touched on that. Open syllables, I'm going to jump ahead here. Open syllables, unaccented, right? Just the opposite, right? Closed, right? We're going to do closed, C-L-O-S-E-D, and accented, A-C, we'll just say accented. And this is open, so the opposite of closed, and unaccented, A-C, C, is going to prefer also a long vowel. Long comates, long comates. Closed accent prefers a long vowel. Open accent prefers, unaccent prefers a long vowel. Now, the opposite is true. If it closed unaccented, so here's our accent. So this is not the accent, right? It's over here. So this is a closed syllable. It's not accent. It prefers a short vowel. It's the opposite. All right. So here we have on this side, now it's a closed unaccented, right? Over here, this side, it was closed accented. Here it is open accented. Here it was open unaccented. But a open unaccented prefers a long vowel, but a open accent prefers a short vowel. And so in these two words, we get sort of this picture of how the long and short syllable preferences exist. So da, var, emphasis, melek, emphasis here. Prefers short vowel because it's closed unaccented. Prefers long vowel because it's closed accent. Not accident. It is an accident, but it's accented. Prefers a long vowel because it is open unaccented. Prefers a short vowel because it is open accented. Oh, all right. English. All right. Same thing for open syllables. We just went through that. Same thing. A open, really tonic is, of course, where the accent is. Still prefers short vowel. Well, we just talked about that, right? Open accented, accented prefers short. We just said that. Here's a closed, unaccented, prefers a short vowel. Here's open pretonic, right? This is open pretonic. In other words, this is not the tonic. Tonic is where the accent is, right? Pretonic is not the accent. And here's our accent over here. And so our open pretonic prefers a long, where the closed unaccented, accent, that is our accent, yeah, prefers a long too. And then you get into these open pro-pretonic. Okay, syllables prefer a vocal schwa, and there you have the vocal schwa. And a vocal schwa at the beginning is going to have it's vocal, so it's going to have a sound. So this is da, va, reem. This is all one, well, these two are one word right here, same. So this is davar, word. This is davarim, also word, but plural, words. And because you've lengthened it, it changes the vowel pattern in the beginning. And well, it just does. Okay, all right. Before you move on, memorize the two basic rules for Hebrew syllables, right? And the labels for classification. I'm not worried about labels, protonic, pretonic, propretonic. Know how to distinguish between a dog's forte and a dog's lene. Recognize a silent vowel versus a vocal. Know the difference between a comates tooth and a comates. Become familiar with a furtive paddock. Pretty easy. If it ends with a het or an and has a vowel, that vowel is called a furtive paddock. And when you're reading and pronouncing, you pronounce the vowel before the consonant. Memorize the syllable preferences. It is useful to do that. It's really hard to kind of get it all together. It's just a lot to absorb. It was for me. I really, really struggled. It took me a while before, like, oh, it clicks. It took me almost 2 months for it finally clicked. And when it did, it was like, oh, now I can understand a lot of other things. Why this happens, why that happens. It just helps to figure out why. I'm a why kind of guy. If you're the kind of person who's just like, hey, just tell me what it is, I don't care why I did it, then ignore that. But I'm a why kind of guy. I get stuck. I want to know, well, why is it doing this? I don't understand. And I'm stuck. It's hard for me to move forward until I figure that out. So I really struggled in the beginning here, and I'm trying to help us get through that. Understand the most important and most difficult chapter in the grammar. This really is. So because we're throwing a lot at you, and it's kind of like, all right, these are a bunch of pieces of stuff, and okay, I can understand the pieces, but I don't know how it fits together. What do I do with all this stuff? And trust us, we'll get there. It just going to take a little time. The good news is next week, I'll do a video on nouns. You'll have that, but we're not going to really. You'll have time to absorb this as we kind of go through it, and before we get back together again. I didn't want to go over just to. We're going to look at very quickly. I hope quickly on page 23. Number 1 at the bottom, 3.13, and continuing on page 24. So number 1, 2, and 3, they call it these. They got 3 rules. I'm going to bring them into 5. Okay, number 1, the short vowels. Short vowels prefer either a closed, unaccented syllable. We just did that. Okay, a short vowel, a comates, not a comates, excuse me, a sagol, a potic. They prefer a closed, unaccented syllable. Helps if I could talk. Or number 2, an open accented syllable. And we're given the example below that we already went through. Well, we went through a different word, but here you have the word ayin has no sound to it. So you have evid, which means slave. Evid. So the first letter, the ayin with the sagol, is accented, and that's where we put our emphasis, evid. And so it's and then vid, evid. And so the next syllable is, so the first one is accented. It is open with an accent. It prefers a short. Well, that fits what we just said as the second one, open accented. The next one, ved, prefers a closed, unaccented. So a short syllable, ved, well, that's what that is. It is closed, unaccented. So that's all that's doing there, okay? And so if you go to the next page, long vowels, okay, we talk about what short vowels prefer. Long vowels prefer number 1, or this would be number 3. If I break their 1, 2, 3 down into 5 pieces, okay, this would be number 3. The long vowels prefer either a closed accented or a open pretonic syllable. For example, in the word davar, the first syllable, the dalet with the kamates, that is a pretonic or open, unaccented pretonic. In this case, it's unaccented, a pretonic. Well, that would prefer kamates. Well, the next syllable, the var, is also it is a closed accented syllable. Well, that's like our rule number 3, right? Closed accent is number 3, open pretonic number 4. And so that would also prefer a kamate, and so or a long syllable. And so the preference is that in those cases, it prefers a long syllable, like a kamate or a sere, or one of those. Normally, kamates is pretty common. Then number 5 is where they have number 3, the vocal shava and reduced vowels. The vocal shava and reduced vowels, especially the hatef vowels, right? The hatef kamates, hatef sagol, hatef parik, etc. They prefer open propretonic syllables, right? So like we saw the word in davarin, the da is the dalet with the shava underneath it. That is our open propretonic. And it prefers a shava or a hatef vowel. Well, you look at the word below that, the Elohim. There's our short vowel in the propretonic, the very first syllable with the aleph, And there we have the Seagull with the two little dots next to it, vertical dots. That is a Hatef Seagull. And so it prefers that propretonic unaccent. It prefers the an open unaccent propretonic prefers the either Shava or a Hatef vowel. And that's all that's talking about. So if you do grasp that, great. Someday you will, if you don't right now, and it will be value added for you as we go further down. And I apologize, a lot of little sort of rules. Who likes to learn rules? Nobody, I don't think. Certainly the Israelites didn't like to learn a lot of rules. They kept breaking them, and we're not a lot different. I don't know that we really love to learn all these rules, but they have value for us. So if you begin to grasp them, if you don't get them all now, don't worry about it. You'll get it as we go, and they'll help us to dissect and understand as we go further into this. So I appreciate your time. Like I said, I'm gonna have to record. Unfortunately, I really hate to do it. Chapter 4. If you could finish the homework before next Friday. Ideally, I like to have the homework done before you take the quiz and have the homework where you have time to talk to answer questions and stuff. But in this first week, it's just not going to work that way. If you can get the homework done, say before, well, really doesn't really matter because, next Friday, next Tuesday, it doesn't really matter. The more, you probably need to do the homework before you do the quiz because it's going to give you a little more confidence. The quiz is open book, but you want to try it without looking things up. And then if you need to look it up after you've answered it to confirm or to correct or whatever, I'm fine with that. I'm more about learning than memorization. So ultimately, try it, and then give me the quiz before the class on Tuesday. I will get you chapter 4 recorded before on class on Tuesday, and you can go over it at your leisure throughout that week. The earlier the better, because you begin to sort of put the pieces together and not have too much time gap without working in it. You do need to spend, I would say, 30 minutes a day. You don't need to try to learn everything in one day, but kind of go back through. When we get to chapter 4, we'll start adding vocabulary, and you'll want to spend time in the vocabulary as well as in the grammar. And then on Fridays, you'll be able to kind of put it together, ask questions. I mean, you can ask questions on Tuesday, but the Fridays will be more conducive for that purpose. I hope this helped. I hope this makes sense. And I'm sorry we didn't get through it all, but get through it all today and during class. But I really appreciate you guys. And it's a blessing to have everybody. We have, I think, 19 registered. I'm not sure all 19 are showing up, and we're going to have to address that because we do need to spend time together. And we'll talk about that separately. Anyway, we'll close with a short prayer, and then we'll move on. Father in heaven, we thank you for this opportunity, the technology that we have, that we can make this available, that we can dive deeper into your word and we can apply it. Help us to be patient, help us to be diligent and focused and study, that we know that the reward will come to those who continue to be patient and diligent in your word, Father. We thank you for all the students. We thank you for the school and all the instructors and for Damien and Andres' help. We continue blessings upon all. And these things we pray in Jesus' name, the Christ. Amen. Thank you, guys. Stop recording. There we go.